Here is a view of the south end of the project. The configuration and the approach here is a little different, so we're going to go through some of these steps. This is a very densely traveled way. This occurs right at the discharge end of the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel. So there is a constant flow of traffic exiting the tunnel. The traffic was all squeezed to the right, and that left one very narrow strip which could be reconstructed. Here's a good view of that strip. It is barely 12 feet wide. In fact, a special formwork had to be constructed here because the metal forms could not be used. They were slightly too wide. So you can see all the traffic is over on the left-hand side, 3 lanes of it, and the work is progressing in this very narrow slot. It is really impossible to get equipment back and forth in this narrow spot. To provide access for the contractor, it was agreed that during off-peak hours during the day, one lane adjoining this construction could be taken out of service and 2 lanes of traffic would be maintained. That finally allowed for construction equipment to park alongside of the construction area and service the area. That was the only way the work could proceed. A similar arrangement could be obtained at night, where 1 lane could be devoted to the contractor and 2 travel lanes would be provided for the public. That was absolutely needed to get through this really confined space. In this view, you can see that the new lane has been constructed. It's just barely 12 feet wide, and it completely fills the space that was available. There is another interesting feature here. You can see the 3 lanes of traffic. That's the normal configuration. 3 lanes are always maintained, except, as I say, during off-peak hours, 1 lane could be taken out of service to provide the space for contractors' equipment, and in which case 2 lanes would be maintained. Now you can see that the existing roadway in this area, at least, is actually 4 lanes wide. All of that space could have been used to facilitate the new construction. But as things always happen, there is a conflict with some adjoining construction. There's a building renovation taking place here on the left of the photo, and 1 lane has been devoted to accommodate that construction activity. So 1 lane has been permanently closed in this area, providing only 3 available lanes. It's an unfortunate coincidence of both of these projects taking place at the same time and competing for this very limited available space. This lane has now been completed and placed in service, and that allows construction to take place on the next lane, again in an extremely narrow workspace. And here you can clearly see how only 2 lanes can pass, because the 3rd lane is occupied by a sidewalk bridge providing protection for the adjacent building renovation. Now, this configuration is called a chute. The traffic is in this very narrow space with absolutely no room to pass a disabled vehicle. So if there's a breakdown in this lane, everything just comes to a standstill and traffic gets backed up. On many projects, you actually park a tow truck in a convenient place so that it can be immediately backed into the chute and the disabled vehicle can be pulled out of the way. A chute is a very undesirable configuration. You really try to avoid it where you can, but occasionally there simply is no option. So the chute and that supporting tow truck is the only remedy that you have. During the off-peak hours, this roadway can be closed. It's been closed here by some barrels, and these are contractors' vehicles used to support the construction. What you're looking at here are insulated blankets. This is the winter, and you want to preserve the subgrade and prevent any frost in the subgrade. You then wait for a promising day of weather, and during that day you can place the concrete, cover the concrete with insulated blankets, and that's how you can keep the work moving during the winter months. In this photo, 2 lanes of new pavement have been completed, and the barrier that separated those 2 phases has been removed, so the chute has been eliminated to everyone's relief. The chute configuration is something to be used only when there is absolutely no alternative. This photo is taken during the day, during off-peak hours, so that the public occupies 2 lanes and the newly constructed lanes are available for contractors' access. During peak hours, 1 or both of them will be restored to the public so that there will always be 3 lanes of traffic for the public. In this view, you can see how the next workspace has been developed. There are 2 new permanent lanes on this side, and then the work zone, and 1 passable lane on this side. So there's room for 3 lanes for the public, but this photo was taken during daytime off-peak hours so that this lane, which would normally be occupied by the public, is in this case occupied by one of the contractor's vehicles. That flexibility to close one of the 3 travel lanes during off-peak hours really was a great help to facilitating the construction. Otherwise, construction really would have been confined to the night, and during the winter especially, you want to be able to work during the day when it's a little warmer, when you can place concrete. This is a summary view so that you can see how much time is consumed by these various stages. They actually moved along quite well. The very first stage, only 1 lane was available, and that was concreted and placed in service. And that gave rise to this condition here in the center, where there was a chute. In the final configuration, the 2 new lanes are available for traffic. During the off-peak hours, they are used in this configuration. The public is kept here in 2 lanes, and this space is available to service the next construction area. Now, it took about 3 months to get from one stage to the next, which I think is excellent progress considering that there was utility work that also had to be done in addition to placing concrete during the very cold weather. That concludes class number 11, which was the last class which dealt with the issues and challenges of highway construction in a dense downtown area.